All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel. Thank you to all 18 of our subscribers for making this possible. We are live and in person today out here in Gilbert, Arizona. I'm Eric with my co-host Christian.
Hey guys.
First of all, we want to start off by thanking all the comments and the likes on our previous videos. So from the last video, we did pin a comment. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here by Skokel Wine Jazz Guru. And I'll just read it. It says, voting RFK, it's interesting to me how much RFK Jr. is feared by these corrupt entities. We absolutely agree. Today, our show is going to talk a little bit less about politics and more about the corrupt entities that we believe are behind a lot of the major decisions that our governments take. Now, take it for a grain of salt. A lot of these things are just simply difficult to verify, and it's because these people don't want to be known. But they are entities that actually exist that you will never have access or membership to. So the first one that we want to talk about, I'm sure RFK Jr., RFK Sr., and definitely JFK knew about, is the Bohemian Grove. And so, Christian, I know you've been doing a lot of research about the Bohemian Grove. So for those that aren't familiar with, give us a little background.
Yeah, so the Bohemian Grove it's like a piece of property out in the middle of California. So like it's near Santa Rosa, out in the middle of literally nowhere is this big piece of land. And what's crazy about it is it's a place, it's like a boys camp for the elites. It dates back to 1870.
Which can we say it's kind of cool? Like just off the cuff, it's kind of tight.
Yeah. What's crazy though is the things that they actually do there. That's where this gets spooky and gets a little weird but it dates back to 1872. So basically like a group of really affluent like artists and lawyers, and they started having these boys clubs. Like they literally started hanging out and doing these boys nights. Well, they ended up
just like a boys camping trip.
Literally, it's like a boys camping trip. But they bought this piece of land, and as soon as they did that, their membership started to grow, and it got more exclusive. So they started monitoring who was coming and going, who they allowed to come, and it evolved into this.
This literally just sounds like what every 12-year-old boy did have, like a club with like, what's the password?
Yeah, the He-Man woman hater. Right?
Yeah,
the He-Man woman hater. Basically, that's what it is, and to this day, only men are allowed. Like women are not allowed to go to this.
Oh wow! To this. Actually, yeah, I didn't know that.
In fact, the only women they had is some of the participants will dress up in drag, and so they end up getting some female interaction that way.
Interesting.
But that's the only women they allow on into the Grove. And so basically today, every like second, third week of July, so probably next week or even last week, they'll have this exclusive meeting. To be a part of this group, you have to, it's by invite only, you have to join a waiting list. They think that right now it's about 25 to 30 years to get on this list. And then once
basically, unless you get on it like when you're like in your early 20s, mid 30s, you're just like not getting on.
Yeah, you're not getting on. And then once you get in, it's 25 grand.
So who could I apply to be on the waiting list?
No, my understanding is it's like by invitation only.
Oh, so you have to even get on the waiting list. You have to be invited.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think, guys. You got to think. This is the most powerful people in the world. Like this is dignitaries. This is politicians, U.S. presidents. This is some of the greatest minds to live on the earth are part of this group. I mean, look at some of the names that have been there. I mean, you have Kennedy was there. You have Nixon was there. You have
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan has been there.
Basically, like every Republican president since like the 1920s, right?
Yeah. It's wild. And so on this little, what do you want to call it, ranch or piece of property, they build it out into these little like camps. And right now they estimate there's like 100 of them, and they all have different themes. And in that camp will be 15, 20 different guys in their little group, and they'll camp in that spot, but then they'll just go visit each other. And then they have like this area where they do like mass gatherings.
So from what I understand, there's like no phones allowed either. It's like
Zero.
No media,
no phones, no video. And it's a big drunk fest. Like they get plastered, they do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like it's a degenerate playground.
It's wild because it's like, it sounds really reminiscent of Burning Man, which is basically that like lawless, just like build out in the middle of the desert and you can do anything we want. But what made it so that it was a place that was just artists in the 1800s to where it became billionaires and elites wanted to go there?
It just evolved. So I mean, the people that started it, they were rich and wealthy. So like, they were lawyers.
They were already well connected, kind of.
Yeah, and when I say artists, I mean they were like famous artists in the area.
Okay.
Like, this wasn't like your Joe Schmo with a paintbrush. Like these were guys that were making real art, and so it just evolved from there into what it has become today, and it's really just the elites and those with power and money.
So. I know that Alex Jones, it was pretty famous actually back in 2000 that he went out, he snuck in and recorded it on a potato, unfortunately. Like, the footage is absolutely terrible.
Isn't that how it always is? Whenever they catch Bigfoot, it's always on some...
Yeah, it's just like bro, like even in 2000, I feel like you should have been better quality than that. But what's stopping someone from, knowing this is a place, knowing something goes on, what's stopping someone from in June, like putting a bunch of trail cams?
Yeah.
So that you could see, like, I want to see if, this invite only secret club, like, at least we get pictures of the people that are there.
So, for one, it's fenced off. Like, there's security at all these
okay,
shit.
so it's not like I could hike in.
Yeah, the most recent person to sneak in was a guy that, he worked, I forget the magazine name, but he wrote for a magazine. And he snuck in through, like, one of the slats that was broken on the fence.
Oh, wow.
And got caught. And, but
they beat his leg.
Yeah, right. He went in there, he got trespassed, obviously, got arrested for trespassing, but they try to keep it really, really, like, on the down low. Like, they don't want any footage coming out of there, and technically they're not supposed to work. That was part of...
Yeah, like, no business to be discussed there.
Exactly.
But it's largely ignored.
Yeah. I mean, there's rumors, and I don't know that it's been confirmed, but there's rumors that, like, even like the Manhattan Project from World War II was discussed and planning was done at this event.
Well, it's wild, the picture that we saw that had Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon both sitting like at a campfire at Bohemian Grove. Yeah. It's just
drinking
odd. It's just odd. I don't like it. I don't like it. If it's good enough for you to talk about in private and it's nothing sinister,
well, you
should be able to talk about it in public.
Yeah, you think that's odd. How about the 40-foot concrete owl?
Yeah, all right. So fill me in. So they're doing, I'm not 100% sure, but if you go back to ancient Old Testament biblical stuff, that was kind of like the symbol of Baal, or is that wrong?
That's my understanding. Is it was like the symbol of Baal, and they did like all kinds of worships to it back in Old Testament times, and
so it's like regenerating these like occult, like I wouldn't say demonic, because I don't think the people that worship Baal like were worshiping Satan, but like definitely worshiping a false god or idol.
Yeah,
out there, right? And like Alex Jones, so like they do this effigy where they burn.
Yeah, so like, they call it the care ceremony.
Cremation of care, that's what it is.
Cremation of care. And so basically what they do is they all dress up in these hooded robes, but they're red.
Like, we're not the KKK.
Yeah, but it's like solid red, like pointed hoods, like the whole 9 yards.
It's crazy.
They dress up. Some of them hold candles. Some of them hold like a wooden casket.
So is it everyone dresses up, or just the people in the ceremony?
Everyone dresses up.
So okay, so like Ronald Reagan has donned a red hood, like Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, George Bush, Obama, all these people like they put on the red hood.
According to what I've read, that's correct.
Gosh, bro.
And so they do this ceremony, and they carry this casket up to the feet of this 40-foot concrete owl. And then they light it on fire. And inside the casket, they say, is a replica of like a skeleton or a human. Like it's supposed to be just made up, fake. But there's rumors and there's theories that it's actually
that's what Alex Jones thinks.
Yeah, Alex Jones thinks it's a child.
So yeah, if you go watch the Alex Jones footage of it, they play really loud screaming over the top of the burning, like on a PA system. So if somebody were being lit on fire, it'd be really tough to know if they were screaming.
Because it's so loud.
Because it's like literally PA screaming 10 times louder than a person.
It like makes me feel sick.
It's weird, bro. It's weird. Like if you're not burning prison, what are you doing? Like why? Like why haven't people been like, hey, let's scale it back a little bit if there's nothing sinister going on there?
Well, and what's the purpose? Like, how do you go from a fun boys weekend, throwing back some beers, playing, golf? Like, how do you go from that to literally sacrificing, even if it is
even if it's fake, like a fake human sacrifice? I just would never, like, any rational moral person would just never be a part of something. Like, I would never participate in something like that.
Like, it's just weird. It's so weird. And I mean to go to this place, you have to be a member, or the only other way you can get in is they hire a lot of talent to come and perform.
Oh wow!
But they're really selective. It can only be men. And
what the heck?
And they bring them in, and sometimes they'll let them stay and mingle. But my understanding is, and everything I've read, is that they kick them out pretty quickly. They're there that night, they perform, they mingle happy hour style with the participants that are there, and then they leave.
And then they get ushered out. Wow. So if we had a talent or skill, we could maybe wear a GoPro.
Yeah, exactly.
If I knew how to do anything worthwhile to entertain people, besides talk.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing is just weird, man. Why?
Yeah, it's really scary because again, there's no definitive proof that behind it's not even closed doors, but in the middle of the forest that they're discussing, invasion of countries or trying to influence foreign policy. But what's fascinating is it's really closely connected with Council on Foreign Relations, which takes place on the exact opposite side of the country. So it's a building in New York City, and it started a little bit later in 1921. What's crazy is, as we talked about Ezra Ziegel last week, and we're not going to dwell on that at all this episode, but there is a definitely crossover in these people who go out to Bohemian Grove and people on Council on Foreign Relations, because Herbert Hoover was a part of both groups, and he is also
the vacuum guy.
The vacuum guy, yeah. So the president right before FDR, who, if Ezra Ziegel is a true prophecy, he was the first feather of this, three-headed eagle, which I think is so. I don't know how much crossover there is between the Council on Foreign Relations or the Bohemian Grove, but I think the biggest difference is the Council on Foreign Relations is a public entity. They actually, they have their own YouTube channel, and depending on where you stand, how big your tinfoil hat is, you might just think that they're a great organization full of billionaires. Again, invite only. You're not getting. You can only be invited by somebody who's already there, who's already part of the Council on Foreign Relations, like George Bush, Hillary Clinton, Obama's have all been asked to speak. And
are they members, or they just spoke?
I believe they're now that they're not presidents, are members of the Council on Foreign Relations. But it's basically the same kind of thing. It's former presidents, business tycoons, renowned academics, kind of like the artisans of the late 1800s, the same kind of people that formed this council. And it was Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Warburgs,
all people that
pastors, so kind of the same.
There's got to be a lot of crossover. I mean,
it can't be 100%, or else there'd be no reason to have two different organizations. But I would imagine that.
I mean, the Bohemian Grove only meets once a year.
There.
So it could easily be, and they're estimating there's 2,500 members of the Bohemian Grove.
And maybe it's like the really secret stuff they're discussing out in the middle of the forest with no cameras, where the Council on Foreign Relations, their YouTube channel has 200,000 subscribers. It's very clear what direction, where they sit politically, because there's not a lot you can find on conspiracy theories regarding this organization. But what I could find is that they have a clear mission to influence U.S. foreign policy, even though they are not elected officials. Some are former elected officials, but they have direct lines to advise governments, not just our government. They're tied to the CIA and Department of Defense, which would make sense if they're former presidents that sit on the board of this organization. But one of the most powerful things of this, I guess, is where we get off into the weeds on whether it's true or not, is that their foreign affairs lobby is designed to eliminate the United States. They believe in one world government. Their recent videos, the stuff that you can watch publicly, that I personally watched, were combating far-right violent extremism, which I think we can all attest is just not an actual threat in America. The threat to our national sovereignty and my freedom is not contingent on whether we extinguish far-right extremism in the Appalachian Mountains or in the woods in Alabama. I just feel like this is not a real threat to the country, but it's one of their platforms, right? They felt necessary to make videos on this. Another one is foreign interference in our elections, which was verifiably false, something they peddled for years during the 2016.
You say that, but did you see? I just saw a CNN article yesterday that said that they've confirmed that Russia is getting involved with this year's election.
Of course,
to help Trump win.
Of course, just like they were involved in 2016. Now the thing is, I wouldn't even say that is not a hot take to think that Russia would have a vested interest in who the president of our country is. I think that makes a lot of sense that they would care, because their national sovereignty is highly dependent on whoever our president is and what decisions we make about attacking their country. I totally understand that, but there was just no evidence that was true. And what would Russian interference even look like? Like, what does that look like?
That's a great question.
Like, if they're interfering with our election,
why would they be interfering for Trump? Biden's the one that loves Putin, right? He just introduced Zelensky as Putin at the NATO convention. Like, literally, he's like
his vice president Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
Vice President Trump, and
he's like, let me introduce President Putin. Zelensky's standing there like,
where's he at?
Yeah,
I gotta hide.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta run and hide.
But like, so I'm not even discounting that could be true. But if it were true, what would it look like? That they give money to super PACs, like to make ads, or like targeted Facebook ads. I mean, to influence people to vote. Like, I just don't
original
understand.
Claims were that they got involved with the Dominion system, and that they actually like physically changed votes or deleted.
It's
votes.
so funny how both sides believe that the Dominion digital voting systems are hacked.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dominion is just a great scapegoat. I mean, it's the main server they used for the voting system.
So I guess I can level there, because if you've ever gotten a virus on your computer, it's hard to pinpoint where it came from and what it's doing, like behind the scenes of your computer. So really, it can never be proven or disproven that the digital voting systems aren't rigged. Like, if I'm pressing a screen, like there's no definitive proof that I press candidate A that it doesn't have an algorithm that 75% of votes for candidate A will actually go to that candidate, 25% will go to candidate B. There's no proof on whether that would or would not happen.
This is why we need to go to paper ballots.
Yeah, it's dumb, because it seems like we just shouldn't need that in 2024. I hate that as a platform, but it's like, well, at least if I have a piece of paper, like, no one can say that it didn't, that wasn't the piece of paper. But then you go back to, how do you count them? And is there human error, or is there, is there?
Well, and what do you do with early ballots? Like in Arizona, we saw there was all kinds of early ballots. Like, I know my grandma got one for my great grandma who died, like in the mail. Like, she could have easily filled it out and dropped it off at a ballot box, and nobody.
Yeah, I guess. But that's each state's job to go ahead and clean up their voting records. And I don't really know. Like, I think that, like, if you can't vote in person because you're in a, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong by thinking this, but if you're in like, an old folks home, or you're in hospice care, and thus you can't vote in person, like, does it matter? Should it even matter to that person who the president is? Does your life, because your life is no longer governing yourself.
Yeah, but
right?
You have family and kids and
I get that
you want a future for.
No, I suppose their vote still matters.
Every vote
matters, counts,
Eric,
Christian.
Every vote matters.
But I'm just saying, like, it should be the ox in the mire rather than, I get it for these rare cases where somebody like physically can't be brought to a polling booth because they're hospitalized or whatever. Sure.
So you're saying, like, make it more strict on who can get an absentee ballot?
Yeah, I think that there should be way more access to voting. Like, there should be a polling center within a block walking distance of everyone's house.
I mean, I don't know how it is in Detroit, but in Arizona, like, that's pretty much how it is.
There are drop boxes. Yeah.
Every church, every like public building, every library has a polling place.
I feel like it's not as. I know in California where I grew up, the nearest one was about a half mile to 3/4 of a mile from my house. Is at a school, but you could always make the case where that's not close enough for somebody.
Okay, if you can't get out a half a mile to vote for the future of your country, then
maybe your vote doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Maybe, so we can at least agree on that. There are certain outliers where we have to give these people an opportunity, but for everyone else, you should be able to, likely, unless you're working from home, you're going further than that to go to work, whether it's walking or whatever. Yeah, I think closer access for people to vote in person. I know RFK's plan on giving people a government-issued ID from post offices is actually a really, really cool idea, where I totally believe that getting to the DMV, at least in California, is a nightmare. Like, you'd be waiting 4 or 5 hours. Like, people ain't got time for that. Especially if there's if it's literally for no reason other than to be able to vote, like nobody's going to do that.
Well, yeah, nobody wants to go to the DMV.
But like if you could just go to any post office and you just walk in and get it done.
That's my favorite clip. Have you seen Zootopia?
No.
Okay, your daughter's a little too young.
No, I have seen Zootopia.
There's that scene. Did you see the scene in the DMV?
I don't remember.
So they walk into the DMV and it's a sloth, and the sloth is running.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "Can I help you?"
Yeah, it's satire, but
it's so true.
It's just how it is. Like these people don't care. They're government employees. They got no vested interest in going quickly.
If I had to picture an employee at the DMV, it's going to be a sloth.
A sloth, yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. So
absolutely.
So there's a lot of caveats on how to get that. I just like RFK's plan to like marry both sides together. But we're digressing a little bit, going back to the CFR and. Again, just from the videos that they have put out, not like a conspiracy that I'm contriving up or that somebody else created that I might agree with, is they believe in addressing misinformation and disinformation. Is a huge part of their campaign, whatever that means. Like things that they don't necessarily like, they're going to like alternate opinions they're going to squash. And I saw a really interesting one on UAPs, and they vehemently deny that UFOs in any capacity exist. That any abnormality, so any unidentified anomalous phenomenon, that's a UAP, what we previously would call a UFO, they believe it can all be chalked up to whether it's US technology, Chinese technology, or Russian technology.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that.
Yeah, and that's, in my opinion, if that's freaking true, if all the stuff that I've seen with the videos of like crafts like disappearing can go any direction without leaving any kind of trail, and that's Chinese technology, we are screwed if they ever want to attack us.
Exactly.
So I really hope that they're lying. I'd much rather be an alien who's just observing my planet than another government like studying and has advanced aerial technology that baffles any of our Air Force or
so that would that
pilots.
Scare you more? So like if you knew that aliens were real, right, and those were alien crafts on our Earth, you had no idea why they're here, but you know they're there, versus that it's actually Russian or Chinese. Like what would scare you more?
I think I'd absolutely be more scared of Russian or Chinese like interference technology like that, because I would know for a fact that they have nefarious intentions, and that whatever military power we think they have, it'd just be far greater, and they could like wipe us out instantly. Where I don't necessarily have the same. If there is an alien race, and I lend myself to believing there are definitely intelligent life in the universe.
Oh, I'm definitely.
It's been observing our planet for at least documented publicly as far as 100 years ago, and they haven't done anything to us yet. But that wherever their planet is millions and billions of light years away,
right?
And they haven't destroyed us yet. I feel like that's not a real threat.
So it's kind of like a devil you know versus a devil you don't know kind of situation.
Yeah,
you'd rather
I don't know has it, but if it is aliens, they haven't destroyed us, and they obviously could.
No, they just abduct like hillbillies.
Yeah, yeah, always hillbillies, always in the woods.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Always never near a major city. Yeah, of course.
They must have like different levels of attraction. Like there's attraction to
all the footage we have also filmed on Alex Jones' potato.
Yeah. His potato, exactly. So do we know, like, are any of the current candidates members of...
Ooh, that's a good question.
Like, what about Trump or RFK or Biden?
At least what we could find out is that Trump has never been out to the Bohemian Grove. That doesn't mean he didn't try to be a member. Like, there's no way we could ever know that he's not on a waiting list.
They told him no. They're like,
nah,
we don't want you, bro.
Our membership's already huge.
Yeah.
We have no more room.
Our owl's huge.
Yeah.
It's a huge owl.
We're going to build a wall. We're going to keep Trump out. Like, but I would assume that from what I understand, and again, there's no way to verify it because there's no recorded conversations of anyone out there. No one's ever been caught wearing a wire.
We need to go. Like, we should go.
I would be totally in. I don't want to get arrested. I've got a lot at stake with my family, but I would totally be in to not drop a drone over the Bohemian Grove, or maybe a fleet of drones to see what we could find. I just think it would be a worthwhile endeavor that the American people deserve to know.
We'd probably have more than 18 subs if we did that.
Yeah, I definitely believe there would be a lot of people that would be interested in what we had to offer if that were the case. Yeah, it's tough because I definitely believe there are some, you should be allowed to have private conversations. I know, there are certain things that are sacred, but I don't think billionaires talking out in the middle of the forest falls under that category.
Yeah.
I don't feel that their conversations, when you control that much amount of influence and money, I think a lot more of your life, unfortunately, becomes public.
Right.
Like, and it's for you trying to hide it. I disagree. So, back to your question about presidents, I wouldn't know if Joe Biden has ever been out there, but I feel like, you know what's fascinating is, for probably the past 5 years or so, I would have assumed that Joe Biden was the establishment candidate.
No, he's just a puppet.
Yeah, but
he's a puppet. Like,
but it's wild. So if he were a puppet, he is certainly trying to cut off the strings right now, because as all the media is telling him, all right, you're done. Here, we're pulling you. The shepherd staff pulling him off stage. He's decided, like, no, I'm going all in, and all the media is kind of freaking out.
It's because he doesn't know what's going on. Like,
yeah,
he's so delusional.
Well, it's funny they say that. So, although none of this is scripted, like, there is a video that I think that it'd be important to watch, just on the cognitive decline of Joe Biden. And, going back to that, we'll throw it up here, the political news matrix on where different entities lie. The Young Turks is pretty close to as far left as you could possibly get, and here's what they show. So they would have absolutely no vested interest in getting Trump elected, right? No vested interest. They would hate this man with a passion. And this is the video that they chose to play.
What we're going to show you is Joe Biden today and Joe Biden from the past. Let's see if you can tell a difference between the two.
Given a fair chance, Americans have never, ever, ever, ever let their country down. Never. Never.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Not the same guy. So if you hear disingenuous people telling you, well, he's the only one that beat Trump, does it look like the same guy? I remember Joe Biden. Joe Biden's been around for a long time. Agree or disagree, he was dynamic, he was forceful, he was aggressive. Does Joe Biden today look like any of those things?
Okay, here's the thing. I am probably the biggest anti-Biden person out there.
Okay.
And I feel sorry for him.
Yeah, it's kind of like, especially I just feel when all the media attacks someone, it's almost like that's the person I want to defend.
Yeah,
so.
I would never defend him. But I'm not going that far.
Yeah,
but I legitimately, this is elder abuse. Like,
Yeah.
it is, like, the fact that they were even letting him or pushing him to go up there and speak, like, it's at the point where it's sad.
So it's definitely what I wonder. So I know we talked about this one of the previous episodes, but do you think it's because he's just a senile, stubborn old man, he's not going to let anyone push him around, or do you think that it's his family that's like forcing him, no daddy, eat the potatoes?
Yeah, so
like
I think it's a mixture. So I think you have Hunter, who literally it's a cash cow for him.
Yeah,
like, he's making so much money, and he's, it's keeping him out of trouble. I know he just got found guilty in that one case, but
so when your dad's the president, that means you can get pardoned.
Yeah, he's playing party boy and getting to do whatever he wants. So I think that's part of it. Is his family's pushing him, but I also think that, like, I think Biden truly believes in his own head that he's a good president and that he's doing a great job. And he's been president for almost 4 years, right? That goes to your head. Like, he's not just going to give it up. He's like, what are you talking about?
Right? So he's been around the White House for, almost 12 years. You'd start to think that you kind of were a little bit better than other people.
Exactly. And so they
who wouldn't have more experience than me? I've been here for 12 years.
Yeah, and even if they came to him and said, like, no, you need to drop out, he's like, why? Like, I'm doing great, because in his mind he is. And I think that's part of it. I did see a spoof that had me rolling, bro. They were like, if we really want to get Biden out, all we have to do is, like, when we wake him up, tell him it's the end of his second term. Like,
can you pull it up?
Tell him he's done. I'd have to find it.
Okay.
It would take me time to find it, but I died. I'm like, that's so true, though.
It would actually probably work. It was like, hey, man, like, you did a great job, 8 years.
Yeah, you beat Trump.
Country.
Like, great work.
You beat Trump. Like, man, we right off into the sunset.
Yeah, we'll walk him over to his oatmeal.
Right on. Hey, we'll take you to the golf course and we'll check out that.
That six handicap. Yeah, exactly. You'd have no clue.
So yeah, I think for me, what's been really wild through this whole thing, as someone who and maybe you disagree with me, but I feel pretty objectively in the middle. Like there are some views that I have that are probably a little more left-leaning, especially when it comes to the environment. Maybe it's because I was raised in California. Just my views on how important it is to protect the environment, regardless of your opinion on what it does to the climate, our use of fossil fuels, or our destruction of terrain or whatever. Just I feel like I do lean left on certain things, but definitely right when it comes to social, like family values, and obviously on fiscally, like far. I don't know about far right, but like I definitely hate tax. I hate getting taxed.
I don't even turn left in my car. I am as far right as
he disabled the left blinker.
Exactly. I have no left blinker because I have no purpose for it. I'm never going left.
But I found it odd how palatable it's been to watch a lot of the news organizations. Like MSNBC is always going to suck, but CNN in particular has been like really palatable to watch over the past couple weeks. And
because they align with your views.
Well, maybe it is like a little bit of cognitive bias, but how they're saying things that are journalism rather than trying to protect things like I can see with my own eyes.
So you're saying their agenda shifted?
Yeah, where before they would protect. It was just like a Trump hate fest.
Right.
Even though that makes them, I understand that makes them money. They are, a private company who's trying to make money. Like they're going to put up stuff that helps them make money. But I don't see how trashing Biden helps them make money. Right. And so like to see them actually do journalism has really.
I don't even think it's that though. I think they're just pushing the new agenda. The new agenda is Biden out. They want a new candidate.
But the problem is there's not a solution. It's not like they even, I think all the way over the past, 6 to 8 months, everyone kind of thought, oh, it's because they're going to push Biden out. Gavin Newsom's going to come in. He has come out and said, like, many times, like, I have absolutely no interest in being the president. Every time somebody asks about that, I delete. Like, I have no interest. I don't think it's a good look for democracy. Like, I think, to me, I think it's because he probably feels like he wouldn't win this time around if they supplanted candidates. He wouldn't get 100% of the blue vote by doing that. And even if he did, it's not enough at this moment to beat Trump. But like I say all that to say that they become a real good news organization in the past like 2 weeks. I find that to be a bit suspect, and it makes me wonder what's coming.
Yeah.
But like if there's anything I will say about CNN that I've never devolved from, it's they cover elections really well. I love their graphics. Like when you watch the last
never watched it, so I couldn't.
Oh man, they're like it's so legit. Their boards, they can zero it down to counties and the break in like real time. It's so legit, like way better than any other organization. And what they really do well is cover natural disasters. Other than when Anderson Cooper is like pretending that a place is flood. I don't know if you remember that. He was standing in a flood zone when he found like the one spot where the drain was, where he was able to go like armpit deep in water, and like his cameraman behind him was standing on dry grass. But other than that, like they do a great job covering like objective fact-based stuff. They've done such a good job on the elections, but natural disasters. So that leads us to the last thing I want to talk about. Is the Lahaina fire, which I studied a little bit, and a lot of these claims about the use of directed energy weapons. Now, which is the acronym for that is DEW, D-E-W. I'd never heard that before. I kind of accidentally fell upon some videos talking about the Lahaina fire, and it's some of the titles are like evidence of DEW or DEW, and this belief that there were essentially lasers, high-powered lasers that started the fire. Again, tough to corroborate, but one thing that is at the very least worth consideration is how all the things that were blue didn't get burned by the fire.
I was just gonna say, like,
all the
wasn't
cars that were blue, at least
like houses were blue and like got completely skipped, right? Like houses didn't burn next door.
I think I only saw one house that actually had a blue roof, but there were like blue cars. Like in a parking lot of cars that got incinerated, there were like a blue car that didn't burn at all.
That's
or like,
interesting.
Or like blue umbrellas next to like debris that just like melted steel, and then blue canvas umbrellas completely untouched.
Wasn't there like some elite houses too that just like got skipped all
So I did look into that, like Oprah Winfrey and Jeff Bezos and stuff. Their properties were nowhere near the fires.
Oh, okay.
Like that.
So it's more of a distance thing versus.
Yeah. Like they just so happened to not have property in Lahaina. Well, at least where their residence was. They might own farmland or whatever, like additional land, but their homes were miles away from any of the fires. So like that part is just a conspiracy. That's not real. But what is real is directed energy weapons.
Yeah,
so I got to looking into this. I thought maybe even that was fake. Turns out,
no, it's real.
That so Israel has what's called the Iron Beam. Everyone's familiar with the Iron Dome, which shoots out like missiles to like what's the phrase like.
The anti-missile, like are you talking about the ones that shoot them down in the air?
Yeah. So
I don't remember.
I'm not sure that actual name is, but so that the Iron Dome shoots counter missiles at missiles coming in, but the Iron Beam is basically a laser beam that shoots at 100 kilowatts of power. And so I need a context, like what is that even? What's 100 kilowatts of power? So a Tesla battery, extended range Tesla battery, is 100 kilowatts. So essentially shooting like at any second, like shooting the equivalent of energy of an entire Tesla battery at a thing, right? The amount of energy that would be, like you could drive a 4,000 pound car 400 miles. That's the amount of energy that can be shot in a second in a direct, in a direct line and that's just what we know about, right? So I think it's fair to say that whatever is public information has been around for 10 to 15 years, meaning that whatever exists now is 10 to 15 years of what we'll even know about.
From us knowing, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So there's a company in Tucson, here in Arizona, called Raytheon. You ever heard of Raytheon?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
so,
we had a building right next to LAX.
Yeah, so Raytheon's based out of Tucson,
Okay.
Huge military weapon organization. I was watching a podcast. Shout out to the Sean Ryan podcast. I love that show.
I only saw part of, just because you recommended it, I saw part of the RFK.
Yeah.
And I mean, he seemed like a good interviewer.
So
sure.
he had a guy, and I believe he worked at Raytheon, like a whistleblower that was on his show. And he talks about this like base in Antarctica, right? Where they have literally direct energy weapons there, and they're testing.
So it's a Raytheon base, or it's a U.S. government facility, or what?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think Raytheon's running it, like running the actual base there, and they're like doing all kinds of testing, trying out different weapons and that kind of stuff. But
are they the only? Does he say that they're the U.S. or like Raytheon or whoever is the only company or entity that has a base there?
No, I think there's other entities there too, but the one he talked about was in like the no-fly zone. Have you heard about the no-fly zone?
No.
In Antarctica? So there's a spot in Antarctica.
I don't imagine there are too many flights over Antarctica to begin with.
Well, apparently this section you cannot fly a plane over. So it's like,
which doesn't make a lot of sense, because I feel like no one, if you look at the way that Antarctica is broken up, no one country owns Antarctica. It's like slivers. It's like a big pie.
Right.
So it's not like we own this part. It's just like a pie, and drawn out, and different countries own like a slice of the pie from the South Pole going outward.
Interesting.
So,
well,
no fly zone.
Yeah, apparently in this no-fly zone, they're testing these weapons. Well, they believe that one of these weapons misfired and actually caused a tsunami in New Zealand.
So the Raytheon guy believes this.
Yes.
So did he work at the base?
Yeah, he was a whistleblower. I don't know what I can't remember what he did.
But like, did he personally go to the Antarctica?
Yes, he was there. Okay, he talks about it. He talks about being there in Antarctica.
Right. Does he have any pictures of himself in Antarctica? Not that that makes your story that much more credible. Like anyone can go on a cruise there nowadays, but
yeah, I'm sure he does.
Okay. So that's pretty wild. I don't know a lot about this stuff, but like I said, the fact that anything that we do know about, the government is 10 to 15 years ahead of that.
Right.
And at least what I was told back when I was in high school is technology doubles every 4 years. So if that's true, that compound that to the technology that is being used by the government or these defense contractors is likely 4 times greater than anything the public is aware of. So here's the stuff that I was able to learn about. So going back to the Israel's Iron Beam shooting at 100 kilowatts of power, Lockheed Martin is advancing a direct energy weapon that is equivalent to 300 to 500 kilowatts. So, and again, that's something that we know about. So it's 3 to 5 times more powerful than what the Israeli Iron Beam is. And this is what's even crazier. And this isn't even conspiracy. This is just like, oh, didn't know this. So due to like the Starlink satellite internet network that many countries have, we've had to develop anti-satellite weapon systems because other countries, likely Russia, China, and Iran, trying to attack our satellites, and not necessarily just by shooting missiles at it, but shooting what would be the best way to describe it, like wave scrambling or like communication interference, so that it's not able to, hey, we didn't knock your satellite down. Oh, sorry, you weren't able to communicate information from it. So so the Russians have, this is on, you can find this on Google Earth, in their country, what's called Project Karina, and that is their weapon system to blind satellites that they have. Like, why do they have a need to blind satellites in the sky other than
Interesting.
Right? And China has a laser that can deliver 1 megawatt of light and 100 shots per 30 seconds, or per second, 100 shots per second for 30 minutes. And so what they've designed, back when we were talking about how in Antarctica that'd be a great testing area because you can keep stuff cold, whatever system that they're working on, their lasers are encapsulated in like cold gas, likely like nitrogen or some kind of cooling agent that essentially can operate timelessly. Like there's no time, like cool down time needed. And so this all gets back to what we're talking about with Lahaina. So laser weapons were attributed, I don't know if you call them weapons per se, but lasers were attributed to China over Hawaii in January of 2023. This is well documented that China was doing some kind of surveillance testing, and this was 7 months before the fire. So there was on the news there in Hawaii as well. They told the people, hey, there's going to be green lasers that you might see in the night, and it's the U.S. military that's doing surveillance for distance testing and measurements. Why they need to do that
why Hawaii?
Over Hawaii rather than some of these like atolls that the United States owns out in the South Pacific where 0 people live, I don't understand. But that doesn't, again, correlation doesn't mean causation. But there are a lot of dead spots in the story on if it's true that certain blue items were, and they could be plants too. Like somebody could easily park a car in a burned down area of Lahaina and say, look, this car has been there since the fire and it was untouched. Like there's a lot of like facts that need to be fully unveiled before determination can be made. But right. the fact that the local news there had to come out and say like any suggestion that direct energy, this is on the Hawaii news, any suggestion that direct energy weapons were involved in the Lahaina fire, these are all false allegations, these are debunked. I just feel like that's not, I think it's wild that the news would even feel a need to cover that. Right. Like if it's not true, like just let people believe their lies, I guess.
Okay, so let's put on our tinfoil hat for a second. So let's say that it really was a weapon from China.
Okay.
Would you consider that in a direct attack on the U.S., or was this like a misfire?
Well, that's if it were from China and not from the U.S. government, because the part that came on the Hawaiian news, a different date, was that the United States was going to be doing, the United States military was doing laser testing, and there's plenty of video or footage, maybe not video footage, but pictures of these green lasers from the sky.
So the government's worried about an AR-15, but yet we have
direct energy
laser beams.
The laser beams that can shoot off, just the ones we know about currently that are actively being used, shoot off a Tesla long-range battery's worth of power at an object in 1 second.
But they want to take my guns.
But an AR-15 is the problem. And me as like I'm kind of agnostic to guns. I think guns are kind of fun. I don't own a gun.
Guns are awesome.
I think they're fun to shoot. But I don't think that like with the technology that the government has, that anything that civil, even if I had a backpack full of grenades, compared to what the U.S. government has that we are unaware of, far surpasses anything that a militia of anyone in a 10-mile radius could come up together. Like, we're going to attack the Capitol. Like, there's so much more the United States government could do to obliterate us in 1 second.
That's so wild. Laser beams.
Yeah. So
Do you want to get really tinfoil?
yeah,
So have you heard, like, there's theories out there that they have direct energy weapons that we can literally
they come from the moon.
that can literally affect a group of people and like put thoughts in their head.
Okay,
Can direct their thoughts.
interesting. I don't. Well, I think the way you phrased it is something that would be like I don't think is real. But at the same time, this is stupid and anecdotal. But I know I can put any song in my wife's head just by humming it once. Right. So, and I can make her sing it for the rest of the day. She's like, "Dang it, you did it again."
What if you had a weapon that could literally put, like, think about Jan 6, and you've got a group of people, right?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because when you think about what prayer is, right, and how I believe that when I pray, that someone is hearing my prayers, whether it's an angel who takes my prayer to God, or whether it actually gets to God, that my prayers are being observed. We'll use that word, observed. But we don't always pray out loud.
Right.
So how is that prayer being, you know, just think about like technology, whatever advanced, advanced medium of communication that God may or may not have, or that may exist. Like, it stands to reason that if we were in tune enough, that you and I could technically share thoughts just by wanting. I want you to, I could just send a thought to you. The same way people with the book The Secret, like, believe, like, sending thoughts out of the universe, right? In essence, it kind of makes sense that that's not false, because if I believe that my prayer that's not even said out loud can be heard by God, how is that taking place?
Yeah.
Other than my thought actually being some kind of energy wave.
Okay, so now imagine a government entity.
Yeah, if they, like, a sinister version of that.
You
like
got a
thought energy.
You got a whole group of people, and all of a sudden the thought gets thrown, go in the Capitol.
We need to go in the Capitol.
Yeah. Can you, like, I mean, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying it does. Radio waves are going past us all the time. If I choose to turn on, a radio to a particular frequency, that doesn't change whether or not the radio frequency is still going past me.
Right.
That's just, I'm choosing to tune into that frequency, right? But the frequency is still going through me, around me, everywhere. So. Yeah, I don't think I'm qualified or sophisticated enough.
I haven't done any research on it. I've read a couple articles and heard some things, but
just on, like, the way you phrased it, it sounds outlandish. But when you actually take a second to dive into, all right, well, how does communication work?
Right.
How do I receive? How can I just pull up any video I want and instantly watch it on my phone? Like, that information is coming from somewhere invisibly,
right, without
sound. So it makes sense that it would be possible to do the same thing, just like I can communicate. A satellite can communicate with my phone. That
I think
a direct energy. We won't even call it a weapon. We'll call it a direct energy device could communicate with my brain. Yeah, fair. So
I think this would make a really fun podcast. We should dive into that and into MK Ultra.
Okay, so so for what it's worth, if you know anything about the stuff we're talking about, any further information about direct energy weapons or any kind of communication devices that exist to communicate with the human brain, we would love to cover it. Leave us some comments, and as always, the number one comment that we feel the best comment, we will pin, and we will talk about that at the beginning of the next episode. And for anyone that was offended by the conspiracies, find another channel, because we're gonna get deeper into the woods.
We're gonna throw some tinfoil.
Yeah, we're gonna get deeper into the woods on next episode. And with that, we're out, y'all.
Thanks, guys.